John Bunyan is one of the most famous religious writers England ever produced, but he matters much more than one book. He is a key figure in the history of dissent, conversion-centered Protestantism, and the power of plain religious language. Bunyan helped show how deep Protestant culture can become outside the formal centres of status and learning. He did not come from elite beginnings. He was not a university-trained cleric in the usual mould, and his authority came through another route. It came through conversion, scripture, preaching, suffering, and sheer force of religious imagination. Bunyan became persuasive, not because he carried establishment prestige, but because people felt he had seen the thing itself. His spiritual autobiography, Grace Abounding, reveals the pressure under which he lived. He knew fear, guilt, temptation, and that terror of self-deception. He's one of those writers for whom religion is not decorative at all, but it is urgent. It's about judgment and assurance and whether the soul can stand before God, and that inward intensity feeds into the Pilgrim's Progress. The book is allegory, but it is not vague because it has roads and burdens, dangers, companions, enemies, false shortcuts, and a destination. It gives narrative form to Protestant pilgrimage. Christian life becomes a journey through temptation, suffering, perseverance, and grace. And because Bunyan writes with strong image and plain force, the work travelled very widely. It reached readers who never picked up a heavy theological treatise. And in that sense, Bunyan is a communicator as much as a theologian. He turns doctrine into movement and memory and scene. And he was also part of the nonconformist world that suffered after the Restoration. Bunyan spent time in prison because he would not stop preaching, and that is not just biography. It places him inside the story of English conscience, state pressure, and the cost of refusing conformity. Bunyan becomes one of the emblematic figures of dissenting endurance. There is also a democratic quality to Bunyan's importance. He shows that English religious history is not only made by bishops, parliamentarians, and university divines, it's also made by lay and semi-lay energies, by people whose authority emerges from religious experience and spiritual fluency and the ability to speak plainly to ordinary hearers. That's one of the reasons he keeps turning up later. Evangelicals admire him, dissenters claim him, popular Protestant culture absorbs him, and even people who no longer share his doctrine often recognize the imaginative power of what he did. So John Bunyan was a dissenting preacher and writer whose conversion-centered Protestantism and prison-tested witness and an extraordinary gift for religious narrative made him one of the most enduring voices of English Christianity. He also helps explain why Protestant religion can become popular without becoming shallow. And Bunyan is plain but never trivial, and he proves that direct language can still carry weight, fear, hope, and theological depth.